There was a study that was done about 20, 30 years ago where a group of men were put together. All these guys were about 75 years old, and they were taken away from their normal routines, and they were put into a group where they were told that they had to live as if they were 50 again. They lived together, they wore badges that had pictures of themselves when they were 50 years old. They only had magazines and stuff spread around that showed stuff from that time period. They could only talk about events that were impacting the world during that time, and they could only talk about the president at that time. What they found is that these men who spent a week in that place, when they left this experiment, their flexibility had dramatically increased. Even their hand strength, their eyesight had improved by as much as 10%, and their appearance actually became more youthful. When their photos of before they went into this week-long time to after they came out were shown to a group of people who did not know them, they on average looked 3 years younger than when they went into the experiment. So what I'm talking about here is its perspective. When it comes to this COVID-19, I assume that you are seeking answers. You are looking for ways to understand what is happening. You know, when I was a kid, my dad ingrained in me to seek for the hidden message, the hidden meaning behind whatever I was consuming. So if I was watching, say, a Disney movie like Aladdin, I was looking for what were the hidden messages, like don't steal, put others people's wants and needs before your own, take care of other people, be selfless. I was pulling and extracting, and I was constantly seeking to understand what I was seeing on a deeper level than just the face value. And when we're approaching this global issue of this COVID-19, what we can do is we can look at it, we can take it at face value, or we can say, what can we learn from this? How can we grow? What can it do for us in the future? And that's what I want to address today. So if you have a few minutes, first of all, I would love it if you would stick around, because I think I'm going to be dropping some really valuable information that could help you and help us globally, nationally, on a small scale within your community. This is about how do we maintain our presence, how do we maintain our calm, our peace, and how do we come out of the other side of this thing growing. Growing as individuals, but also growing as a community globally. During World War II, there was a lot of pain and there was a lot of suffering. On the other side of that, though, there was a lot of positive things that came out of such a negative experience. And I am not trying to downplay the suffering that we are experiencing today. What I'm saying is that we have to find that nugget. We have to find that thing that we can pull out of this to come out the other side in a positive place. So when this started, my initial reaction was that of confusion. I experienced some anger, because of the struggles financially and where I see the world going as far as economically. We're just starting to go through this. And so where is this going to take us? The one thing that we do know at this point right now, and if you haven't accepted this, it's time to take a look at it, is that the world that we knew before COVID-19 is never coming back. Our world is going to shift dramatically. There are going to be lasting changes. And where that goes is up to us. In a moment of crisis, in a moment of confusion like this, we have the ability to mold the future. We have the ability to shift it. And we each do that individually, but we also do it collectively. Why I want to talk about perspective, why I told that story in the beginning of that group of 75-year-old men who basically reversed aging by changing their perspective, is that how we look at this thing, how we go through this, the perspective that we have is going to have a massive impact on where we end up post this event, post this time. Our perspective shapes our reality. So let's talk about perspective. The biological response to fear and isolation is severe. Isolation kills more people than obesity, some people have argued. Fear triggers very real hormonal responses inside of our body that decreases the effectiveness of our immune system. So when we are coming from a state of panic, pandemic, or a place of fear inside of our lives, our immune system is not going to respond as effectively as it could have if we were coming from a place of energy and power. We have a choice of how we're going to respond to the situation. There's no doubt that the situation is going to create stress and fear inside of the population. And we have a choice. Are we going to respond as a victim, or are we going to respond as a creator? What I want to encourage you to do is to respond to this situation from the standpoint of being a creator of your own inner world, a creator of your own life, a creator of your emotional reaction and the empowerment that you feel inside. Because if this situation extracts power from you, and we're coming from a place of powerlessness, our ability to fight off disease, our ability to respond in a good way that we're going to have a positive impact on society and the people around us is diminished. And the more of us that come from a place of empowerment, the more that we can turn the situation into a positive, and the better of a place that we can come out the other side of this at. What does this event, what does this time period right now, this COVID-19 problem, which started and then it's going to lead to economic turmoil within our world, what does this event mean to you personally? Because what it means to us personally is going to determine the actions or the direction that we take, how we respond to this situation. So when this situation happens, is this the end of the world, or is this the beginning of a new world? Is this the end of opportunity, or is it the beginning of new opportunity? The perspective that you have, the belief that you have, or what you take away, the meaning of the situation, is going to impact the choices that you're going to make. When you wake up in the morning and you look at the situation and you see it as a calamity and it's the end of the world and life is never going to be the same, what kind of decisions are you going to make versus if you look at it as this is a very challenging situation, yet there is abundant opportunity all around me? You're going to be looking at things differently. You'll pull things out. Like when you're reading an internet article or a blog article or you get an email, you're going to be pulling out different information than if you hadn't. So there's this thing that Tony Robbins does where he has the entire audience and he tells them to look around for anything that's brown. Brown, brown, brown. Gives them like 10 seconds to look. And he says, okay, close your eyes and now tell me everything that was, say, blue. And because we were looking for those things that were brown, we didn't pay attention to the things that were blue that were around us. It's the same thing right now. If we're looking for places of opportunity, if we're looking for places of growth, if we're looking for places how we can contribute to other people's lives, we will find them. If we're looking for reasons to be fearful, if we're looking for reasons to hide inside of our shell or to pull in, we will find them as well. So whatever we are seeking, we will find. And so what I'm trying to say is that what we are looking for will determine our actions going in. And so think about this for a moment. If we had one person who was making the decision to act in a positive way or a negative way, that has a very small impact. But let's say as globally, out of 100 million people, 1 million more people choose to look at this from a positive place. They choose to come from it from the aspect of I am a creator. What can I do to give? How can I serve? We're going to have a completely different outcome than if that never happened. And I just want to take a moment. If you are appreciating this content and where I'm going with this, I ask that you hit the subscribe button. So what is the future that we are creating right now, both personally and collectively as a species? Because our beliefs directly impact the decisions that we make, which lead to the future that we are going to experience. And a question that I have, what is the media doing to shape our future? So when you think about our inner dialogue, how we speak to ourselves influences how we feel and the decisions that we make. And I want just for a moment to zoom out. So if you can, imagine zooming out and you see Earth in front of you, and humanity on this Earth it's like an organism. And when we look at this organism, the media plays the role of the inner dialogue on a personal level. So the media is out here speaking to us, and they're giving us messages. It's like constant chatter. What is this chatter doing for us as far as our perspective goes? Is it empowering us to make better decisions? Is it empowering us to come from the standpoint of the creator and how we're going to respond? Or is it instilling fear? Is it causing us to hunker down, to go into a shell? Is it encouraging isolation? I can't speak to the direct results of COVID-19. I am not a doctor. I am not an epidemiologist. I am none of that. So I don't even want to get into, whether or not we should be wearing face masks or not. I don't know. What I do want is I want humanity to thrive. I want us to have a positive future. I want to come out on the other side of this thing with more abundance and more prosperity than when we went into it. So facing adversity and crisis is a time period where we have the moment, where we have this time period where we have the ability to influence how we come out the other side. It's like we've reached this top of this mountain. We've reached a climax, and now we can choose which side of the mountain do we go down. There's two different paths. And collectively, we are going to make a decision. Collectively, we are responsible for where we are going. Each one of us is responsible for the direction that humanity travels. If we leave the decision to the power hungry, then they will only do what's natural to those that are hungry for power, is they will take more power. If we leave the decision to those that are fearful, then they will do what's only natural to those that are fearful. If we leave the decision to those that come from a place of love, that come from a place of abundance, that come from a place of positivity, then we will only do what is natural for those that are coming from that place. And the more of us that come from this place of love, acceptance, gratitude, who come from a place of growth, then the more positive our future will become. And you play a key role in that. And I'm going to get into how that actually shows up scientifically inside of our world. But right now, what I want to ask is, where is your center point? Where is that part of you, that core? What are you willing to give up, and what are you not willing to give up? Because we need to get very clear on what we are willing to let go of right now. Are we willing to let go of freedom for security? Are we willing to let go of that? Because that's a very real question that's being asked right now. Are we willing to let go of our comfort? And then where are we placing our hope? Are we placing our hope in some outside source that somebody's going to come and save us? Or are we placing hope within ourselves and our ability to respond to this situation? Because if our hope is placed in something outside of us, and that thing falls apart, then hope becomes toxic. It turns in on the person that was putting it out, and it can cause severe defeat. And right now, we need to come from a place of intense power. So placing that hope in your ability to respond to the situation, in your ability to find opportunity, in your ability to make the most of what's happening, is going to be what carries us through this situation together. So how can we remain united in a time when we are being asked to stand apart? Like I said earlier, isolation is deadly. And right now we are being told that we cannot gather. We are being told that we cannot come together. And yet coming together and gathering and sharing in each other's lives is what creates a spark. It's what connects us. It's what enlivens us. It's when a newborn comes out of its mother, why skin-to-skin contact is so essential for maintaining the health and vibrancy of a newborn. So I want to pose a question. What if our experience of life, the flavor of our life, was a direct result or a direct manifestation of how we perceived the world? What it was that we were allowing our minds to focus on? Are we focusing on growth? Are we focusing on expansion? Or are we focusing on contraction? Are we focusing on love? Are we focusing on fear? And as a nation, as a group of people, what are we focused on? And the reason why this matters is because there was a study that was done in Washington, D.C. in 1993, where a group of 2,500 meditators came together. And during the specific time periods that these people were brought together to meditate, there was a 25% reduction in crime. So a relatively small amount of people impacted a very large amount of people. And there's a lot of science, there's a lot of study that goes into this idea of heart coherence, of coming from a place of love, and the impact that a group of people can have on a much larger body of people. There was another study that was done during the peak of the Israeli and Lebanon war in 1980. What they found is that over a 27-month period, when people came together and meditated in large groups, there was a 40 to 80% reduction in the amount of deaths that happened during those time periods. And this is when they factored out holidays and they pulled out weather-related events and all that. What they found is that there was a 40 to 80% reduction. That's significant. And so when you look at us at a global scale right now and what we are experiencing globally from our media, from the government, are we focused on creation, inspiring, growth, power, overcoming, health, abundance? Or are we focused on fear? Are we focused on limitation? Are we focused on what we can't do? And so from this experience of COVID-19 and the aftermath that is going to follow. What are we going to allow ourselves to focus on? How are we going to unite? What are we going to do to come together? What are you doing individually for yourself to serve the people around you? There's a group called the Heart Math Institute, and their study has been basically on the collective human emotion and the impact that that has on the planetary energy field. So there's a very real resonance that comes from the Earth called the Schumann resonance. There's also a magnetic frequency that emanates from us. So there's this frequency that we all emit from ourselves. And when we are in coherence, it's measurable that when we are in coherence, our vibration, our basically the resonance that we emit affects others in a much more positive way. We are all walking around influencing each other based upon our emotions and where we're at. And so by you raising your own emotional state, by you removing yourself from a feeling of victimhood or fear into a place of power and love, you are going to impact those around you in a much more positive way. And so I hope that if you take anything away from this video, that just by you living from a more inspired and powerful state, that you are doing your part in impacting humanity in a positive way and leading us to a more positive future. So that means that when fear comes up, we look at it and we say, where's the opportunity for growth? When struggle emerges, we look at the opportunity to overcome that challenge and what we can learn from it. We are going to lead into a future, guys, and it's up to us whether it's a positive, loving, abundant future or that of pain. And I hope that we choose loving, abundance, and peace. Humanity can get its health back. And maybe this is exactly what we needed at this moment in time. So hit that like button, subscribe. Be sure to keep your eye out for my next video by tapping that little bell next to the subscribe button to make sure that you get all the notifications that I put out. Love you guys.